The other thing too, we talk about, specifically when it comes to making a big change, is oftentimes we get cold feet, and so I really like this idea of test driving, because oftentimes, and we see it a number of times from clients that come into the office, and it's like, hey, have you done the thing yet? Well, no, I'll get to it. It's next year. Well, hey, it's January now. Have we done that? Right. And there's this idea, this notion that, well, if we just talk about it enough, we'll convince ourselves that we've actually done it. Yeah. And so this idea, whatever it applies to, of just taking the next step is such a good point.
Yeah, you have to step into the arena to give it a try.
Mm-hmm.
You can only think about it so much and feel what you're thinking.
Right.
It doesn't really happen very well. But when you go actually try living in that town, or, taking a week off that's unstructured time home just to see what does it feel like to not have a job at home.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden you start to get a better sense for what you want it to look like. And I think that's probably the most important thing to test, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking some tactical financial things for some of these things, but when you're going to shift into retirement, you're really, if you think about it, it's like this career that you've had more often than not is something that's had a lot of meaning in your life.
Right.
And it's going to, in a sense, it may just fully go away. And so you really want to give yourself the space to think about, well, what am I retiring into? And what do I want my time and energy and talent to go toward now? Because you can only, I mean, it's like, I think of through my own lens, I can only surf so much in a day, and I already surf every morning. Right. So like maybe when I'm retired, I can go play a round of golf too. But even then I still have half a day left.
Mm-hmm.
I better be doing something with my time. I don't know what it'll be when it's time for me to retire, but I'm going to have to test it and figure it out ahead of time. Because it's fascinating when you work with as many clients as we have over the years. We're all driven by some purpose to have freedom in our lives. And freedom can mean different things to different people, but I've found that it ultimately means you're optimizing your time, your money, your energy, and your talent. And when you take the shift from work, you just give up all this time, energy, and talent needs to get reallocated somewhere.
Mm-hmm. It needs
so you need to
go,
give
right?
yourself the space to figure out, what is that? Am I singing in the choir more? Am I, participating at leading the church more? Am I, becoming an usher for a baseball team? That's you, sir. I don't know. Although, are you doing that in Pittsburgh? Because
I don't know. As I tease it out, I mean, that's a podcast for another time. I don't know if I'd get behind the Dodgers.
But I could totally be an usher for the Padres. I could do that. I'm there. Yeah. That sounds killer. Yeah. But what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? I think that's giving yourself the space to figure that out makes a ton of sense.
It really
so go
does.
Test it.
And, it's like what you talked about earlier too, where it's like, are we, for the context of retirement, are we retiring into something? Is there something waiting for us on that other side of the fence?
Yeah.
Or are we actually running from something? Right. And there's this idea that leaving a bad situation at work, hey, I'm done, don't want to be here anymore. Well, we're going to be happier on the other side. Or are there things that, it makes sense to have that test plan in place where we're leaving a big community. We're leaving a time, as you mentioned, that this was something that meant something to us. We gave 20, 30 years at a particular company, and now it's just gone. And so what do we have outside of work in terms of community? If we're relocating, right, we're just uprooting. That's really hard. Have we had dinner in that town before? Do we know where the good restaurants are? Do we have friends that we can call and be there in a heartbeat, right? If we have kids in a different city, are they going to want to hang out with us 24/7? Most likely they have their own lives to attend to. So,
right.
Really like the idea of being able to have different areas outside of work, right? To be able to, look at when we have that time, energy, talent, money, like once that's gone, right? And now we have to have an avenue to fulfill it. It reminds me of this term. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, called the Ironman blues.
Mm-mm.
It's really interesting. So I've never done an Ironman, full disclosure. I've ran a half marathon. That's the closest I got. So very far away. But there's this idea of you've done all this training for months and months on end. You finally have the race, you run your best race, you crush it, you cross the finish line. And now the next day, you're probably really sore, I can imagine, but you have nothing to look forward to. Like that training is gone.
Yes.
And so people tend to have the little bit of depression of like, okay, well, what's next? Yes. And I see this a lot when it comes to goals, or in this particular instance, retirement, where we go through that awkward phase or transition of like, you mentioned the euphoria of like surfing or golfing all the time. We can only do so much of that. Now we have to figure out like, okay, well, what do we do after we had 2 months of that? And I'm kind of tired of this, or, you know, I can
exactly. You can't do it all day, every day. Right. No.